Eddie, good morning. Just wanted to check firstly, is everyone okay that played the other night? No fresh injuries?
Got a couple of players to check today. So yeah, they are. No major injuries from the game. I think everyone physically looked pretty good in the game.
Jacob Murphy wasn't part of the squad against Bradford. You'd mentioned previously that he'd been carrying an Achilles problem, I think. Is he fit and available? How's he doing?
Yeah, he's doing okay. Yeah, it's an issue that we're managing. Sometimes with Achilles tendon problems, they're sort of ongoing and players manage them. We've had several in the past few seasons who've done that. He's sort of in that place where he is fit and he's available and has been, but maybe certain days he's been quite sore, so we just try to manage his load.
And Jacob Ramsey hasn't been with you since the Leeds match with the injury he sustained there. How's his recovery going, and when are you expecting to see him back in your squad again?
Yeah, I think his recovery is going really well. He's on the grass, working hard, building his fitness back up. The plan, I think, was it would be the first game after the international break that's ahead of us. If it's any earlier than that, then of course he's ahead of schedule.
You also had Anthony Gordon back properly for you against Bradford. He did play against Barcelona, but then was still suspended at Bournemouth. How big a boost is it now that he's fully available and can hopefully really get his season started? Yeah,
it's a big boost for us to have him back fully. I think the Barcelona game, of course, was sandwiched in between his suspension in the Premier League, which was a game of, we utilised him in, but I think now that's fully over. I think he can really focus now on the few games that we have to come before the next international break. I thought he was excellent against Bradford. I thought he looked sharp. He was creative. Certainly had the right attitude to the game and certainly helped the team deliver a good performance.
It does feel like a big game player for you because he's delivered so many times in matches against teams at the top. Could Sunday be the perfect afternoon for him if selected to help you to a big result? Yeah,
I think that we need that attitude from everybody. We need everyone to be big game players, and I think certainly when you look at our season, we're playing big games every 3-4 days. I don't think there is a small game for us. He's someone that has done really well in those type of games. For me, a player that rises to the occasion, and as I say, we're going to need everyone to do that on Sunday.
And finally, when you play Arsenal, it's always competitive. The atmosphere is noisy. Do you think, given the way some of the matches have gone, home and away against them in recent seasons, that there is any added edge to this fixture, even if not from your perspective, from the point of view of the fans, at least?
I think it's always been competitive against Arsenal in the games that I've been here. And there has been an edge to those games because I think both teams are desperate to win. We sort of encourage that. I think the more competitive we are, the better we play. So certainly we need to bring that side of our game.
Thanks, Razor. Pete?
Eddie, you've got a great recent record against Arsenal, as Razor was just touching on there, and 3 home wins in a row. Does that enter your mind at all as you go into the game on Sunday?
I think you play these teams and the other teams in the Premier League so often that, of course, results sort of ebb and flow, and sometimes you do better against one team than you do others. I mean, our record against Bournemouth who was our last opponent in the Premier League, has been disappointing. So it was, but you don't think about that going into the game. You think about this is a fresh game and a fresh opportunity to impress. So we've always had that sort of line that you draw under the past. The past isn't relevant. But you need to take whatever confidence you can positively and take that with you. So we'll look to do that. But this is a fresh game and Arsenal are a new team.
Both sides had a good summer, really, with incomings as well, didn't they? I mean, it's probably a very different-looking Arsenal team to the ones you've faced in recent seasons.
Yeah, and that's the point I was just trying to make. They're a different team, but likewise, we're a different team. And I think you go into a new season full of hope and expectation of what you can be, and we're still in that moment where we're finding out what team we're going to be. Really positive signs, I think, this season in the sense that we look solid. But against Bradford, you saw, I think, signs of the creative side of our game, and the technical side was in a really strong place midweek, and we're going to need similar.
Dan Burn and Fabian Schär for so long have been a brilliant centre-back pairing for you. You've had a chance to have a look at Sven Botman and Malik Chow. Are you excited about that partnership as well, potentially long term at the club?
Yeah, well, just looking individually at the players, I think Sven, for us, has been a magnificent player. You go back a couple of seasons ago, he's part of the back four that was really, really resilient and solid, and formed a brilliant back four that was playing consistently at that time because we weren't in the Champions League. And I think everyone knows Sven's qualities. The injury came at a bad time for him. He's had to work his way back. And whenever you have a long-term injury, there is a period where you have to go through a training period, for me, where you're trying to find your best form. There's been some really positive signs in the last couple of games that we're close to seeing back to his very best, and he's a massive player. And Malik in a different situation, joining a new club. But certainly he's really impressed us in the early weeks.
Sassy, about your record signing, Nick Voltemada. He made a good start here, and he showed some fantastic touches and link-up play, I thought, on Wednesday night against Bradford. A lot of fans talking about him, and how do you see him do you see him as an out-and-out 9? Do you see him more as a 10, or do you think he can do both? What's your initial thoughts? And I know it's still early days.
It's difficult to see him as a 10, seeing we don't play with someone in that position. So I see him as a 9, but I see him as a 9 who plays it slightly differently to other 9s that we might have had in the past. I mean, you can't compare Nick to Callum Wilson, for example. They're two totally different profiles of player. But doesn't mean they can't both be effective in the role. So it's just utilising the players to their strengths. And also, as I said so many times, getting the players to understand where Nick wants the ball and how he plays. So I was really impressed with him on Wednesday. I thought he did really, really well in a short period of time on the game, but showed his creative flair. Link played really, really well.
Finally, for me, we were talking to all managers about kickoffs. We've seen some different ones this season. I think in the Bournemouth game you mentioned, they had one. They booted it long up the middle at one point, and we saw Sandro sort of almost a rugby union style stuck it in the corner. What's your thinking behind that? It seems it's something new. What's your whole thoughts around this sort of new phenomenon, if you like?
Yeah, I think it's always been there, just maybe more talked about than previous times. I think we did very similar when I was playing all those years ago. So I think it's probably a lot's made out of it than the actual reality. Against Bradford, we just played short and we played. So I think we bespoke it to what game we're playing.
You got any more strange, wonderful kickoffs to consider this season?
Not really, because I don't think it's something you want to spend too much time on, because you've got so much to prepare for and so many set plays that you want to try to score off, really, that you don't want to give the players added detail.
Thanks, B. Andy?
Well, Neddy, you referenced that defensive setup a few years ago that was so resilient, so solid. Do you feel like this current defensive unit, regardless of who you play, whether it's Dan and Fabian, whether it's Malik and Sven, whether this defensive unit is getting back to that sort of standard once again in 25-26?
Well, time will tell. I think that's what we want, obviously. I think when you're looking at a consistent backline, it's all about the structure that's ahead of it. That is just as important as the structure of the back four themselves. So the team function is really important, and I think we've defended our back four really well this year with the players in front. Have done a really, really good job. I've always believed in consistency of selection in the back line if you can. And of course, when we haven't been in Europe, that's been easier. I don't like chopping and changing the back four unless I absolutely have to. But I think with the games that we have, and we spoke about that a lot this season, I think that will be something that we will have to do.
Just one on Lewis Miley. I'd seen he'd been getting a little bit of stick online. Joe Linton referenced it in a post-match interview as well in midweek. How unfair do you think that is, given how young he is, but also how he's been playing and how he's developing currently at the club?
I'd be amazed if that was the case, to be honest, because I just think that would be totally unjustified. For me, Louis is an outstanding player, and he's a player we need to support and protect. And you mention his age, and sometimes when you look at him, you forget how young he is, because the stature of him is maturity, both on and off the pitch. But I think with all players, they need support, they need help, they need guidance. Anything other, I'd encourage the player to switch off from and just try and listen to the people that really matter in their lives. That'll be family, friends. But of course us, and we will do everything we can to support him and treat him as the talent that we know he is.
Just talking about the Arsenal game on Sunday and the fact that there's been like this little bit of extra edge maybe over the last few seasons, how much do the players enjoy that extra little bit of edge in a game?
As I said earlier, I think we play better when there is that edge in our game. I say that many times. I say that to the players themselves. If we're not in that sweet spot of aggression and competitiveness, we don't play with the same way. I think we have players that really respond to that type of game. Of course, there's a balance, depending on what style of game we're in. We need that technical composure and that creativity that you saw against Bradford midweek, which helped our performance in a different way. So I'd like to think we can navigate our way through a game and utilise all the skills we have in our psychological framework to help us win.
Just finally, Arsenal were your first opponents as Newcastle United manager, on the touchline at least, albeit down at the Emirates 4 years ago. Does it feel like 4 years ago, that?
Feels longer, I think. Yeah, that was a proud day because it was my first time on the dugout, but it was a tough day as well. And I think it sort of, looking back, paved the way for how tough it was going to be to stay in the league, because at that stage we were a long way from the team that we are today. So I think we've come a long way in a relatively short period of time, although 4 years in footballing terms is a lifetime, really. But we're still here and we're still fighting.
Thank you. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
I know you spoke about Willis Sulu after the midweek game. I just wondered if you could give us a bit of insight into how it's been with him behind the scenes when he came so close to leaving. Is it almost a relief with what's happened with Wissa that he stayed at the club and has performed for you when you've given him the opportunities?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing with Will and the situation with him and his career in this moment was we felt, and he felt collectively, that he needed to play regularly. After last year's year of development, really behind the scenes, did a lot of work, a lot of individual work, a lot of development, really focused on all aspects of his game. I think there was a need for him to play. Of course, that move didn't happen, and I think very much to our benefit, and I think to Will's benefit as well, because he's here and he is getting opportunities to step onto the pitch, and he's done really, really well. I was really pleased with him on Wednesday. I thought it was an excellent performance, 2 really good goals, and possibly could have been more.
Does it feel like after a slowish start to the season that momentum is beginning to build? You know, you got the win against Wolves, a good draw at Bournemouth, and that win at the midweek. Does it feel like it's starting to pick up now?
Well, we hope so. I think our performances have been there. It's sort of flipped from last year where our performances weren't there, but we were winning games right at the start of the season. But I think we've performed strongly. I go back to Aston Villa, Liverpool, games that we didn't win, but yeah, I couldn't really fault the performance in any way. And I think we've maintained that through, but we just haven't had the sort of the goals and the wins to show how strong we've been in the games. I hope that will turn. My football experience tells me it will. But then we go and play Arsenal, which is a tough game in its own right. So a really good early season challenge for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Written guys, we'll add Sundays onto the end, so if you've got any questions you can hold back, please do. We'll start with Damien and we'll go to Mark Douglas.
Eddie, with Nick, so much of what he does seems to be instinctive. How do you harness that individuality while trying to assimilate him into a team shape and a game plan?
Yeah, I think we try to do that well with players of similar profile, in a sense that, you know, he is creative and he is instinctive, as you say. I think it's difficult to sometimes read what he's going to do because he's very technical based, does really well in tight areas for such a big man. But we'll find that, I think, historically we've done it, and we'll find our way again to implement certain patterns and movements that the team recognise that benefit the team, and then we can build our patterns around that. So I've seen some really positive early signs from him. I think, considering the short period he's been here, and basically in no training time with him on the training pitch, it's been just game, and so we've missed that work with him that we like to do. But I can see how he can help the team, and I'm sure we'll utilise him to create chances and score goals himself.
with Alex, when you brought him in, you talked a lot about getting him into the 6-yard box and those kind of areas. What is the focus with Nick and adapting his game to yours?
Yeah, I think like any striker, you have to be in goal-scoring areas, otherwise you won't score. So there'll be a similar theme of work with Nick, as much as he links play and builds play very well in deeper areas. When the ball's in and around the box, we'll need him where he can score goals like he did at Wolves. I think Wolves is a great example of what he can do for us. His movement was very good. The cross, of course, impacts everything, but the header and the finish was a high level. So I think that would be a good prototype.
Thank you. Mark?
Eddie, are you seeing Sunday as an opportunity for maybe a bit of a statement win, given their status and where you are kind of in the season?
Just trying to focus on preparing well, implementing a good plan, and of course trying to win the game. That's what we pride ourselves on doing every game, home and away. We'll try to win.
And St James's Park on a Sunday afternoon in this kind of game is always a bit of an arena to savour. Is that something that you think can play into your hands as well?
Always at home. I think we, whatever day we play on, they're special days. Nothing's lost on me, whether it's a midweek game, Sunday game. This will be a special game.
Thank you. I'll go to Lee Ryder, Louise Taylor and Chris Waff, please. Lee?
Eddie, do you think a game against one of the big four, you need to make a statement early in the season to sort of stick one of the big guns, if you like?
I think it's a nice phrase of question, but I think similar to what I just said, yes, we respect our opponents, but we go into every game desperate to win. I've seen that attitude from the players this season. We know we need to get our Premier League form up and running. It's early in the season, but we don't want to become detached from any group, so we're desperate to do well.
The game down at the Emirates, you actually went into that game, you could have finished second last season if you'd have won the last two games. Could that have come a little bit too early for the club where in the sort of process you're in?
No, would have taken whatever we could have got. I actually thought we played really well there at the end of last season. It was one of those games similar to the start of this where we were very strong, performed really well, created a number of chances early in the game, didn't take them, and Declan Rice scored a wonder goal. So that was a tough defeat for us because I thought we were really strong.
Thank you. Louise?
Hi, Eddie.
Hey.
Now you've been rotating a lot more this season, and clearly you've got a stronger, broader, deeper squad. But have you changed your attitude at all towards rotation? And has James Bunce been a part of it?
No, I don't think my attitude's changed. I think 2 years ago we'd have liked to have done the same, but it was almost as we got to the point where the game started to come, we lost our strength and we lost the ability to do it. So I think you've got to be really careful with rotation, that you don't over-rotate and lose rhythm in your squad. So I think there's a real balance to it, but I think it's a case of more of looking at the individual players and seeing who is at a point where they're going into the game and not able to actually deliver their best performance. I think that's a better way of looking at it rather than thinking we're just going to rotate for the sake of rotating. We'll look at the load very carefully and try and make the right decisions on an individual basis, and then, of course, try and pick a team that's strong enough to win the next game.
And do you detect having greater competition in certain positions? Is that having a positive effect?
Yeah, well, that's the plan. I think competition is really, really important for the players, as much as they might not like it, because everyone wants to play as much as they can. It can have really positive effects on your performance because you know that you've got someone else waiting to take your shirt if you drop your levels. So, again, it's all added to try and help the team and try and help us win, and that's the most important thing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louise. We've got Chris, Craig and then Luke, please. Chris.
Morning, Eddie. You said after the game on Wednesday, I think it was only half jokingly, that basically you aren't training on the training pitch at the moment, and you had this experience 2 years ago. Can you just offer some insight into what that actually means in practice, and how do you, I suppose, develop someone like Nick into the team and integrate him into the team when really you're not actually fully training on the pitch? And obviously Graham Jones, I think, took a session after the game on Wednesday as well. Can you just offer a little bit of insight into how that sort of works, please?
Yeah, I suppose the best way of looking at it is we are, of course, training. So today we will train, but 10, 11 players will train. The guys that played on Wednesday night will be doing very, very little 2 days after the game. So we'll be taking the chance to someone like Nick, who didn't play, to get some work into him today. So it's grabbing those moments when they come. But yeah, certainly we were not training anywhere near the team training sessions, 20 players, 20 plus players. They're not happening at the moment, and they won't be happening for a long period of time because we've got a packed schedule. So it's about grabbing the moments to work the individuals when you can.
And how important is the experience of having done that 2 years ago? I mean, obviously it was different for you. I know you'd managed in the lower leagues and there was a lot more games at that point. But do you feel you've been able to tweak how you work and how the club approaches that sort of thing this year with the Champions League experience that you've got?
Of course, yeah, we look back, but I don't think it changes dramatically. It's about making sure the players recover in between games. We get the tactical information in a variety of ways. Try to be creative with that so it's not boring for the players. But we've been doing that for a long time.
Thank you. Craig?
Hi, Eddie. When we
Hi.
spoke to you down at Bournemouth last week, I think I'd said, was there more emphasis on the wingers to chip in with goals and assists? And you said, well, no, it's on everyone. And you made specific reference to the midfield. 3 days later, Joe Linton scores 2 goals. I think encouragingly for you, Bruno actually missed a couple of chances as well. Have you been doing something different, tailored in training with regards to getting those players back in goal scoring positions?
I'd love to say yes to you, Craig, but at the same time, I just said we're not training, so not sure how that works. No, I think that I back the players in those positions that you talk about to create and to do the jobs that they've historically always done for us. Joe Linton's always picked up some big goals for us in big games. Bruno is a creative force, whether it's slightly deeper up the pitch or higher. I thought he was excellent against Bradford on Wednesday. But I think it's about the awareness. I think you make a valid point on everyone contributing, regardless of your position. Our fullbacks have to create. They've always been a huge source of either assists or goals from those deeper positions, and that's never going to change. So it's the whole team functioning, really.
And just a word on Anthony Elanga, 7 games into his sort of Newcastle career. There's been no goals or assists yet. I think obviously mitigation, given he hasn't been playing with a settled sort of front line. But how do you assess Anthony Elanga's first 7 games in these early months in the team?
Good. I think that's a harsh one to say no goals or assists, because statistically you're right, but then you look at the chances he has created, and sometimes it's not on him that players that he served haven't scored. And I always think that's a tough one. So if a player scores, so if Nick scores Jacob's cross, with a header, he gets the assist. But vice versa, if someone misses that opportunity, then that assist doesn't happen. So I think he's done his job several times in the games that he's played. Hasn't ended up in an actual goal. But I've been really pleased with his general contribution. I think he's looked a threat. I think you see what strengths he will bring. He has that raw pace and power that is so difficult to defend against. But of course, I think he can get better and he can improve, and we can help him do that as we continue to work with him.
Thank you. Luke, Scott and Jordan, please. Luke.
Were you aware of the Lewis Miley stuff this week? And if so, did you have a conversation with him about the criticism online?
I was aware. I haven't seen any of the comments myself because I'm not accessing that information, but it came back to me that there was something. But Louis and all the players unfortunately have to deal with this world that is there. If you open yourself up to it and you absorb it, then it can affect you. But I think Louis very mature for his age. He's strong mentally, but I think it's, as I said earlier, I think it's our job to protect all the players. And I'm not talking about Louis here, I'm talking about everybody. Protect their own thoughts and their own views on themselves is so important, that players maintain their confidence when they enter the pitch and they blank out all the noise. It's important for me to do that as much as anybody else in my role. And really, I critique myself. I don't need anyone else to do it for me.
You're not on social media, and you've made a conscious decision throughout your managerial career, and you were playing when it wasn't around.
It was around.
It was around, was it?
It was around, yeah.
No. You
Yeah,
were playing
it was.
ages
Yeah,
ago.
no. It was around, and I did absorb a bit.
Really? Okay.
And it didn't help me, so I cut it off
Right. Okay.
very quickly because I didn't like what I was reading, even though they were probably right.
I'm not. Yeah. So, would you prefer if your players came off it? Or can you just not stop it? Is it just a generational thing where it's pointless even trying to tell them to come off?
I don't think they will come off it if you tell them to. And I don't think I have that right to do that. I would advise them probably. I'd look at it this way: if it helps you, then do whatever you need to do. But if it doesn't help you, come away from it. I think it's all about how you absorb the things you're reading. But as I said, I think it's about having a really close circle of friends and support network, family, friends, whatever it is, agents, a really close circle that you trust. And I think them together with the coaching staff, I think they're the big pillars of support you need as a player to then produce your best football. Anything else, any other opinions are really can be negative for you.
Okay, we're getting quite tight on time, especially with Sundays to come. So I'm going to go to Scott, to Jordan, to Dom, and Kieran. If you can knock it down to single questions where possible, please.
Yeah, that's fine. Eddie, the last few home games against Arsenal, it does feel like Arsenal have been unsettled more against Newcastle than maybe against any other team they come up against. I know you'll say that you do specific things for every game that you play, and I do take on board that it's a different Arsenal team every time, but are there kind of specific tools that you feel have worked particularly well against Arsenal and that you lean on when you come up against them in a game like this?
I think there's things we do against every team tactically. Every game is so different. But I think Arsenal are slightly different this year tactically when I watch them play. And that's credit to Mikel because he'll evolve his team every season, every summer. He's obviously got some new players in there as well. But yeah, of course there's things we look at and there's things in our armoury that we will utilise. But really it's against any team. Every game is new, as I said earlier. And we've got to find our way this season. We've got to find our way to be consistent, score goals and try and win games.
Okay. Kieran and Tino have started the season as the full-backs. Lewis Hall played twice this week. Does that give you a decision to make going into this weekend? And how is Lewis Hall physically now, having come through those two games?
Yeah, I'm sure he'd be better physically for the two games. I think Lou's still building his way back up to his best physical level. I was pleased with him in different ways probably. You look at the Bournemouth game was a really good defensive performance from the team and he played his part within that. And then against Bradford he had a lot more of the ball and a lot more creative and attacking intent. And I thought he got better as the game went on. So I think good signs for him. We've still got to treat him carefully in the early stages of his comeback.
Thank you. Dom?
Morning, Eddie. Saw 3 centre-backs last week at Bournemouth. You've had success with that previously against Arsenal. Just how important is that adaptability to move between a back four, back three in these 3-game weeks in particular?
Yeah, we like the versatility that brings us, and we'll, as I said, we always look at the opposition and ourselves. It's not just dependent on them, it's about us as well, and what's the best balance going into the game. And I think it's worked well for us, and also just that element of surprise. I don't like being easily read in terms of what we're going to do. We've got loads of different ways of playing, we've got loads of different systems we can utilise as long as the players understand what's expected when they go on the pitch, which I think they do. We're not afraid to use any of them.
Thanks, Tom. Kieran and then Martin.
Morning. When you think back to that first Arsenal game, how do you assess the progress the club have made since then and the work kind of still to do to, I suppose, compete with those teams, over a course of a season?
Yeah, I think a lot's changed. Just in terms of the general feeling of the club since that moment. Of course, the team's changed. I don't know the numbers in terms of what team I started with that day. But naturally, teams progress and change over time. But certainly the way we're working behind the scenes as a football club, and it's totally different. But I also think if you just look around the training ground here, when we walked around the training ground the first time we came up, it was so there's been big improvements. No, so I sidestepped that. But there's been big improvements, and that's what the club needed, and it still needs. We need more. and but things will change and gradually evolve over time, and it's exciting times for the football club.
Thanks, Kieran. Martin, to finish.
Just a quick one, if you don't mind me asking there, Eddie. What grief did you get on social media? and sorry, more importantly, how did it make you feel?
No, I think it was tame. It was just, I think at that stage when I started to look at it, I wasn't playing very well. I was injuries everywhere, so I don't know what I was looking for. But I think sometimes you just, as a player, you want to sort of see the general feeling. But I quickly learned, this is only 1 or 2 games, I quickly learned that the only people that I need to really care about is myself, obviously the manager and the coaching staff at the time. They're the only ones that matter. So it was a very short experience for me, but an important one, I think, that I felt that because now I'm in these shoes, I can totally sympathise with the players and try and help them, and I can understand their feelings.